Good adventures, everybody. I'm Melissa Bonzek, and welcome to episode 152 of Books Cubed, the show where I chat with authors you should be reading. And today, I'm not only joined by author Christian Hurst, I can speak. um, I'm having trouble this morning, and I'm not starting this again. I'm joined by author Christian Hurst and their narrator, Aryn Mello Pryor. And they talk about what it's like working together, how they found each other, and how things go. So I thought it would be really interesting for anybody who's thinking about reaching out and looking for a narrator. So have a listen, and I will see you after. Okay, I am really excited to welcome Christian Hurst back to the show. He was on episode 132, if you want to go back and look. It was from December of 2025. And his narrator, Aryn Mello Pryor, to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys could be here because one's a writer, one's a narrator. And this is going to be really fun to hear how everything works together. So let me do a quick who's who. So Christian, if y'all remember, is the writer of Lily Starling. Thank you. I want to say Starfield. No, that's wrong. Lily Starling series, a YA space opera that marries his love for the genre's classic roots with diverse, queer inclusive characters and themes of identity. His work is informed by years of experience in design and branding, allowing him to connect with readers on a deeper level. He calls home Pennsylvania home, where he lives with his wife, son, and 3 dogs. Oh, I'm so jealous. And Aryn Mello Pryor, they are an actor and a narrator. And when I was looking at their resume, I was so impressed to see that they had been in several Shakespeare productions and played my favorite character in As You Like It. You're Rosalind. Am I correct?
Yes, I really got my start in Shakespeare, and that was in particular very fun because I work with a company that does unrehearsed Shakespeare. So I got to do Rosalind with no rehearsal and only from cues, the way that Shakespeare actors would have done it back in the day. So that was great fun.
Oh,
that is fun.
That is terrifying.
It was terrifying, but it was great fun. And Rosalind is one of my favorites as well. So
just great character. We in high school we used to excuse me, we used to go to the Ashland Shakespeare Festival every year and stayed in a cheap hotel and watched plays all weekend or for a week. I can't remember how long we did it, but just absolutely loved it. If anybody is remembering those days, it was the 80s and Stuart Duckworth was like the star, the male star of the show, and I can't remember any of the ladies. I'm so sorry. But that's the name. That was the name I remember from those days. Okay, so Christian, you're the writer. You've written a book, and you decide you're going to have a narrator. How do you start the process?
Well, it's an interesting process because when I first self-published the first book, I didn't really know where it was going to go. And I may have mentioned this on the last show, but I'll just give a quick recap. And, it was just time to get it out there into the world because I had been working on these stories for a very long time in my head and on paper in various forms. And so getting it out there for the world and then getting some positive feedback and seeing that people actually connected with it, that was when I started to take it more seriously. And so I started to learn more about, publishing and all of that. And along the way, I made some connections and friendships as I was learning and learning the industry. And so early on in the process, I had developed a friendship with a voiceover artist who narrates books. And she was very interested in doing the book. And so at first, I just always had her in mind, like, oh yeah, when we are ready to do the audiobook. I couldn't afford it at first because, it's a lot of expense and time and also commitment. I wasn't sure if even, that was going to be a thing. And so as I was writing the second book and, I really have all 5 of the YA books sort of sketched out. And so I'm trying to get them out into the world. And I'm thinking the first book, I think I'm missing a huge chunk of audience by not having an audiobook, And but the other realization I had was that this friend of mine that I had become quite close to at this point was not right for the role. And that was such a hard moment for me because I was trying to be both publisher and director, and also author and artist, and also friend and part of the indie community. And so it was the moment where I made the choice to take it seriously as a publisher and as a producer of content, and rather than just this is a fun little hobby that I'm doing. And so I have a 15 plus year career in brand marketing and advertising, and so I've had to make decisions like that before. But it was interesting to be like, I guess I'm going to be a professional now in the book world too, instead of just kind of having fun with it. And so I did an open casting call, through Audible, and it, believe it or not, Aryn was really the one out of I got like 100 and some submissions, but and I reached out through their agent instead of on the platform because I did some Googling and so that was the beginning.
Nice. Okay, so Aryn, you how do you make a decision? I mean, I know that some people would go, a job is a job. I'm going to do any book and read it. But are there books that you read them and go, nah, I want to pass on this one, or books that you go, oh my God, I'd sell my soul to narrate this book?
I think there's a little bit of both. That, of course, you are, looking for a job, you're looking to pay the rent, but sometimes books come across your dash. You're looking at this page, just pages and pages and pages of books that are looking for narrators. And you have to kind of narrow down what you would fit and what you would enjoy, because working on an audiobook is very time consuming, so it has to be something that you want to sit with for that long. And I have been a lifelong fan of science fiction and Star Trek, so when Lily Starling came across my dash, I was like, that's something I can do.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed. I read the book on Kindle, but I listened to your sample. I don't have an Audible subscription, but I listened to your sample and thought, wow, that really elevates the book.
Thank you. It's very nice to hear.
Yeah, and I appreciate that as well. I mean, that's what I was worried about, the dropping off the edge into full-on camp, which could have been easy with a pulpy sort of fun story. But I also tend to write with emotional realism. And so finding an actor who would commit fully was like the highest priority for me, because that's a very brave thing for an actor to do. And I don't know if anyone who has done any acting will know what I'm talking about when I say it's a brave thing, because you're trusting the material at that point that you've been handed. And so as a writer, I do put my heart into these things, but then I hear someone reading it back to me and I'm like, oh, I really hope that, I wish I could have changed that, or, and it's kind of hard to relive your work through someone else's eyes. And so I tend to avoid rereading it after it's been through editing. And I was so impressed and grateful to Aryn for committing fully. And that really comes through. The biggest compliment the audiobook has received for me so far is that my dad really likes it. And he's not one to just throw out compliments for media in general. So he texted me late at night and he was like, I just finished chapter 10 in the audiobook, which is all the way near the end of the book, And he's like, it really hit me. It was really something. I really enjoyed it. And what did he say? I got a big kick out of it. That's what he said. And I was like, that just made my night, because I know it's my dad and he should say those things, but I believe him.
Oh, most of our parents haven't read our stuff. Most of our families haven't read or listened to our stuff.
Exactly.
Excuse me. And that's okay. If they're your audience, great. But if they're not your audience, you know.
Right.
You know, I write what at the time I wrote cozy mystery. My mother had dementia, and so I would try reading my stuff to her, and she kept going, "Where's the love?" Like, I don't write those kind of books. So I had to swap to spicy, which I just giggled all the way through. I should have gotten her audiobooks to just play while I was sitting there with her, because reading a spicy book to someone is a completely weird.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, at least the narrators. When you're narrating it, you're in a booth by yourself. That's one thing.
Right.
But yeah, okay. So let's talk about. Okay, so prep work. So you've written your book. Is there anything that you do to make sure that it's going to work as an audiobook, or do you even think about that?
During the writing process, I wasn't considering it. But then, Aryn, why don't you talk about, sorry, but the prep work that you sent me, because that was like super helpful.
Sure. I mean, I think, when you get a manuscript, you do a quick read of it, because all you've gotten beforehand is, a little snippet for an audition piece. So you do kind of a quick read of the book, get a general gist of the story, the themes, and most importantly, the characters. Because one of the things with an audiobook, especially an ensemble piece like this with so many different characters, is they all have to sound like individuals. So I just make a big master list of all of the characters that crop up and descriptors about how they sound, or about their personalities. And then Christian and I had a big meeting to talk about the way that he wanted it to sound, and especially how he wanted Lily and the narration to sound, and any ideas or references that he had for different characters. And that kind of set a foundation to start with. And then, I pulled pieces of the book to kind of send a sample to Christian to see if he liked the way that these particular characters sounded, or the way that these types of scenes were narrated, because a long piece of description is going to be very different from a combat scene, to see kind of where we were at, if he liked the way it sounded, and then went from there.
That is I really like that. That's great. My poor narrators, I send them a list of pronunciations, and
That's part of it as well, yeah.
you go and you do your thing. And thankfully, I've been lucky enough that people come back and go, "Oh, that's exactly how I thought the character would sound." I go, "Okay, cool." Cool. Because I usually don't go back and listen to the audiobooks, because I already read it 10,000 times, so I leave that for somebody else. Okay, so I like the prep work you did. So that's the prep work. And then how long do you take then to do the narration? And I know there's all kinds of things involved with the engineering.
This, I think, from the first day I stepped into the booth to the day I sent Christian the final files, was like a month and a half to 2 months. You have to juggle, when the neighborhood is quiet enough to record. And if your voice is shot one day and you can't record, so you have to be able to, juggle between all of that. And with all of the editing, I think a lot of people don't understand how time-intensive that part of it is. That some narrators do just record the book and send it away to be engineered, but I did all of my own editing for this book. And especially because I'm not a professional sound engineer, it can take quite a long time. That it takes 2 or 3 hours to edit an hour of finished recording. So you spend 13 hours with Lily on this book, and I spent probably 50 or 60.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. And do you have I know when I'm reading books, and sometimes when I'm listening to narration too, I will pause to write down or to highlight a scene that really either makes me laugh or gets me emotionally, because I like to tell the author, "Oh my God, this spot I really loved, and this spot, did this for me." As you're going through and narrating, do you find yourself wanting to stop? Because I know you do a lot of prep work before. You must read it multiple times, but then as you're doing the actual recording, do you find yourself stopping to want to even just look around and see if anybody's listening and tell them, "Oh my God, did you just hear what she said?"
There are definitely moments like that, because you actually don't read it multiple times, at least in the way that I work. You don't read it multiple times. I do a quick skim, have creative meetings and stuff with Christian. And the first time that I'm really closely reading like dialogue or blocks of description and stuff is when I'm recording. Ahead of time, I'll go through the book and I color code my entire script so I know who's talking and I can look at a page and know whose voice I need to pull out next. But the first time I'm closely reading is when I'm telling the story. So there are definitely moments when you say something like, ooh, that's good. And then you have to go back and edit that out afterwards, or something makes you chuckle a little bit and you're like, okay, say that sentence again. We'll come back to that. But yeah, there are definitely moments that catch you off guard when you're recording.
Do you think that not reading it completely before you do it keeps it fresher?
I think that's definitely part of it. It can make, dialogue seem a little more off the cuff. It can make emotions come through a little more truthfully when, you just find yourself saying something emotionally vulnerable that you didn't expect yourself to necessarily be saying. And I think that can definitely help with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was like doing the Shakespeare without rehearsing.
Exactly. If you never know
it's
kind of what's coming next, you're always kind of on the balls of your feet, ready for something interesting to happen.
Yeah. Okay,
and that was actually something that part of the process when we first talked, because you talked about like a couple months of work once you stepped in the booth, but we had a whole few weeks of like before that where we were going back and forth, and first we had to get to know each other, and then I don't know, I was incredibly picky. So I appreciate you sticking through it, but that was part of the process that really appealed to me as an actor approaching it in an emotionally fresh way, because that's also how I try to write, which has a Shakespearean origin in theory, in myth anyway. Like Shakespeare supposedly sat down and wrote a play from beginning to end. I find that my work is better if I do that, and with a chapter, I will sit down and just write it all the way through, and then I can go back and fiddle with it. But I just find that if I write myself into a problem, I write myself out of it. It just feels more emotionally honest, and so it kind of matched in terms of process, and I do think that comes across. I think it's really cool, especially in the early part of the book, when Lily's running and that descriptive language, because that's when you're first getting to know sort of the cadence and her, the way her mind works and that kind of thing. And I think it feels fresh and like it draws you in.
Yeah, it does. And so okay. So how many books now have you narrated now, Aryn, for the Starling series?
Just the one.
Just the one? And I want to say there's
the
4
one is
books.
enough for now. 12 hours.
Now, have you, since Aryn did the narration for the first one, have you written anything new for the series?
Yeah, we're in book 3 now. So
okay, so as you're writing, do you now hear Aryn's voice instead of your own when you reread the words as you're editing and working on it?
Well, as with some of the characters, I really they were brought to life in a different way when I heard the narration, and so when I do see them a little differently, yeah, and as I am writing it now, but just more fleshed out, I think, emotionally.
And is there anything that any phrases or words? I'm thinking more phrases that you know that they really handle well, that you want to throw in wherever you can.
I've not gotten quite that granular with it, but but it's an interesting thought. I'm sure we will, as we continue to work together, kind of have that relationship. Sure.
Because I know that I can't remember who it was. Someone talked about that they always threw something in for their narrator because of the way they said it or something. I can't remember. Hang on, I just have to turn my fan on. My office is hot.
I think there are some authors that definitely like to toss in some tongue twisters to try and trip up their narrators.
like my
Yeah,
pronunciations. I was going to mention when we talked about the
Yeah, there's a
pronunciation
lot of
guide. So
pronunciations in this
some
one.
of the I did some of it was torture. I know because when I first wrote them in my head, I pronounced them when I came up because it's sci-fi, so I'm coming up with fake words and I pronounced them when I first wrote them, but then
mhm.
I've long forgotten about that, years later, and I'm looking at the word. I'm like, how did I don't even know how I put this together. So we did the pronunciation guide, and it was like, there were very few that I was like picky about. The rest, whatever you said, I was like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. That with sci-fi things, yeah, that can be an issue. Because sometimes you've got these tongue twisters, and I do have the narrator that I use, Rebecca Brokaw Sands, who does my fantasy. I had said to her one time, I really try to be careful not to put tongue twisters in, and she said, actually, the way language is, it makes it much more interesting if you don't worry about that. She said, just write what you're going to write. And she said, I will say it. I said, okay, 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 that works. That works. Yeah. So you've got, okay, so it takes what, 2 months? 2 months to do the book. How long does it take you to let go of the characters? Because I did a little acting myself when I was younger, and sometimes you do a role and it's just really hard to let go of that role. And is that the same thing when you are doing a narration for a book versus doing a character on stage?
It can a little bit, just because with voice work, obviously it's very muscular. It changes the way that you're physically using your voice. So with most of the characters, that doesn't happen so much because they have to be voices that you snap in and out of quickly because they are only appearing in dialogue. But when you're working with a character like Lily, who is also, the voice of the narration itself, sometimes, I'd be at work at my corporate office job and pick up the phone and I'd be like, nope, that's Lily, that's not me.
And that's one thing I never did ask you if there were any of the characters that you connected with more than others, and if, because I know a lot of Lily's patterned after the way that I see the world, and how when you kind of embodied that, if you found yourself thinking the way that, she thinks at all or anything like that.
I think part of what makes Lily a great character is that she is the audience's conduit into the world. So no matter who you are coming to the book, you are Lily. You're the entry point. You're the way that you are experiencing the world through her and with her. So I think it's kind of inevitable that you're going to connect with her as an audience member because that's kind of the point. That's what she's for. And she lets you into this crazy world. For me, I have always identified since I was a kid, if there's an alien or a robot or like a weird little guy, I'm like, that's me. So it was
Nice.
always, characters like Datch that always was kind of like, well, that's who I am in this story.
Nice.
Yeah, you're totally right because the POV that the book is putting across is our doorway into that world, and yeah, we're gonna identify it. But yeah, the side characters, and you gotta love side characters. They're there for a reason, but they're there also to uh, take the our main character down a peg or two when they need to be, without beating us over the head with deposition, without I can speak, without too much description and too much throwing things at us. Okay, so you do plan on doing more Lily audiobooks?
Yes, I mean, and I would love to work with Aryn again. So we have talked about future books, and I have already committed, 100% when those books take place that, at least they have the right of first refusal. But, you know, you got to be ready to take a project like that on. But I will wait until they are ready to do it. You know, especially because I think I'm actually really excited to hear the third book because that one just came out, and so that one's been on my mind a lot. And I'm like, man, this is gonna be good as an audiobook.
Yeah, and you think about the narrator, like I do when I'm working on something. I think about the person who's going to be narrating it, and both of my series have, the same narrator through the series, which works out really well.
Oh, I got Shakespeare right up there.
This,
So, yeah, and I love Shakespeare since I was quite young, and the that sounds so like cliche, especially if you're into like literature and theater and stuff. But I'm like, no, I really do love Shakespeare, and I'll tell you how I can prove it. I can spell Shakespeare without looking.
I used to have a dog named Shakespeare. Actually, I was very clever. We had a Christopher Marlowe. We had Shakespeare first, then we had Christopher Marlowe, and then we had Keats, and then we were going to do Wordsworth,
Oh, really?
but instead I went with Maxwell House Coffee because writers drink coffee, and I thought I was so
there you
damn
go.
clever for that. And
I love that.
people would just look at me when I'd go, "Yeah, then this dog's Maxwell House Coffee," and they just look at me, be like, "Oh, it's just
That's
totally
great.
lost on non-authors."
I named my dog Bones after Bones from Star Trek.
Oh, I
And everybody
love
thinks
it.
Bones, dog, bone, but
Yeah.
no, it's
Oh,
Dr.
I like
McCoy.
that. I
had a
like
cat
that.
called Wishbone, named after the dog.
Wishbone, nice.
Oh, I remember the series. Yeah, it was a great series. Okay,
Fantastic.
this was it. This is what I thought was a really great one. So I know this is kind of this. This won't be spoilers, but if anybody who has not read the book yet, you're going to not know who some of these characters are. But for both of you, who aboard the Salamander would be the worst to take a road trip with?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think it would actually be the Rothka, even though they are my favorite. But I think it would get old real fast because they're like their dynamic is very fun to read, but I don't think I'd like to spend any enclosed time with them because And for those who haven't read the book, Colin is very practical and serious and kind of anal, and then Turan is a mess, and he always kind of is a walking disaster. And so I would think that the constant bickering and the potential for catastrophe would probably get old.
Yeah, I had the same answer. I can just picture being like in an RV with the two of them, and one of them decides that, the RV can perform better, and they pull over and spend 6 hours taking the engine apart for no reason. But I also thought about the other side of this question, that who would I want to be on a road trip with? And honestly, I would love to go on a road trip with Dr. Tess. Because I think I want to hear about the migratory patterns of birds, and she would know all about it.
Nice. That would be a very informative trip.
I would learn so much.
Yeah. Yeah, whether you wanted to or not.
I love that. And I also thought about Captain Callan would have such serious dad energy. And so he'd always be, stopping at every rest stop and talking to the clerk and,
And jokes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
jokes.
yeah. So for people to find the book, how many hours long is the book? Is the audiobook?
I think it's about 12.
I think it's about 12 and a half-ish.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking it was more than 10. Okay. So where can people find the audiobook?
It is exclusive to Audible right now, and you can find it through Amazon. If you buy the book on Kindle, you can have Whisper Sync, which is pretty cool. I only discovered Whisper Sync recently, which is like you can read and then on your Kindle, and then when you open the audiobook, it'll pick up from where you were reading, which is really quite interesting. And so Amazon ecosystem, necessary evil right now for my publishing needs, but the they are cool products. Will say that.
I got to tell people, the book is good, but you got to listen to the audiobook. Because,
I
like I
agree.
said, and as an author who's heard people say this to me about my own stuff, the audiobook was so much better. It's like, okay, I'm going to
It
take
is
that
the
as a compliment.
perfect entry point for the series. I will say that, and like I know that my writing has gotten better as I've been getting through the series, and um, the reviews and everything reflect that. But something about the audiobook, it just elevates it, and I give Aryn the credit for that. But it's really cool. It's more, I think I wrote it in a cinematic way anyway, and so it just feels more like it should be in something that you can just sort of sit down and listen to, or enjoy in that way. So
Yeah, I wonder in the future if they'll be like holograms. So I press a button and there's Aryn
probably.
in front of me, and they follow me through the house reading to me
That is
as I
adorable.
walk around. Yeah, and maybe they have the book, and maybe they look up, and I don't know if they talk to me or if I ask them questions about the book. Uh, but I had a flash of that as you were talking about being cinematic, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool? There
That's
they are,
that
right there,
new
reading it to me.
um, that new $20,000 robot you can buy for your house that can do your laundry or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking.
Oh my God, really?
So my wife
Creepy.
startles so easily. We were talking about it the other day, and I was like, if we had that robot, you'd be in the laundry room and you'd turn around and have a heart attack because the robot would be standing there.
Yeah, it totally would. Which made me flash on. It's funny how little things make you flash on old memories. When I was in college, I worked at the college bookstore, and we had a mannequin that we never used outside of the store, but he was in the bathroom, and that was to screw with anybody who went in the bathroom. And every single time I went in that bathroom, I would shriek. Every single time. Yeah, I would not. I would not make it. I think if I click the button and Aryn appears and they're reading to me, I mean, I know that they're going to be there. I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah,
I
This
but
think
jump
the
scare
though,
in
following
your
you
house
around
now.
thing, I don't know
but
about
you
that.
imagine that you forget to turn it off and they're wandering around the house. Oh, and there's a murder. Oh my gosh. So now I'm going to have to, I've
Sounds like a new
gotten,
book in the works.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm like, oh
exactly.
my God. I can totally see that happening. Oh, that's great. Okay. Oh, thank you. I've got my next book. Okay. So tell everybody where they can find both of you.
Yep, I'm easy. I'm on at Seahurst Publishing on Instagram and TikTok, and lilystarlingbook.com. Join the newsletter, please. That is the best way to keep up to date, and it's on Substack, christianhurst.substack.com. So, or just Google me, you'll find me.
And yeah, I'm at Aryn Mello Pryor on Instagram or Blue Sky or .com. You can find me.
Yeah, and I see it lists your agent. So do you want people to contact your agent for proposals and things like that?
Sure, absolutely. If anybody wants to hire me, you can email my agent Candice, Candice at citizenskull.com.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's so interesting to hear how the collaborations work.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been a great time.
Everything we discussed is down in the show notes. If you work with a narrator or are wanting to work with a narrator, check out Aryn, and also drop a note in the comments and let me know how it's gone for you with your narrator. And that's it for this time. I will see you next week with another great show. And until then, go read a good book. The Books Cube theme music was written by Laura Lynn Hardy. She performed the vibraphone. Billy Tyke Miller performed percussion. And it was recorded at Mills Kids Recording in Huntsville, Alabama.